Okay, we should be live, and God willing, we'll have some audio.
Hey.
Sounds like it. I'm listening to it on my end here. It looks good. If anyone cannot hear either of us, please let us know in the chat. Look, Barles, he's new to this, right? I was the one who used to do this. Barles stepped up to the plate. I said, I can't deny him an opportunity to grow. It happens to
grow and manage the stream audio.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we can hear.
Awesome.
They can hear us both. Beautiful.
Audio is coming through. All right, good. Hey, Josh. Josh is in the channel. What's up?
I see Jason's
here. What up?
I saw Nikki B
Esther.
earlier.
Nice. Hey, Ishan, Ian, Strawhenge. Welcome. I realize I got to stand a little bit over. I'm like in the wrong side of the window. I got to move
over there.
Yeah, I'm getting my head cut off.
I know. Right. Come on, Barles. I'm also, of course, I've done this before. It's so funny. I accidentally streamed at like 4K. So every now and again, YouTube's like, you're streaming too high. So let me know if it starts to lag or something, and we'll figure it out. Or Barles, you got it? Have some grace with him, guys.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Cool. I see a bunch of familiar faces in the chat. What's up, Liam? Rob, Nikki from iHeart gamedev is here.
Yeah.
What's up?
Hey, Nikki, long time. Good to see y'all. Really happy you guys can make it out. Turkey Jerky, what's up? I'm alive. Can you believe it? I didn't think I'd make it.
Totally.
That studio. Cool. Well, we're super excited. We're gonna wait another minute or so to let some folks come in. We are going to talk a little bit about that announcement. I saw some of you theorizing about what it could mean. Full-time channel, who knows? We'll talk about it. But in the meantime, leave some questions in the chat. What we're going to do is we're going to monitor that. And after we kind of just share what the announcement's all about, we're going to answer your questions. And we're going to answer questions about the channel, about what's going on here in-house, as well as your game dev questions. So if you have any game dev questions, bring them up. We'll do our best to answer them. I don't think I could pull up my code editor without the stream blowing up, so I don't think I could look at any code, but I'd be happy to just we'd both be happy to answer your questions. Missed you too, Keith. Missed you guys. Hey, the Taylor series. Hey, man. A lot of great faces in here. You're all great faces, but a lot of faces I recognize.
And Jason, yes, exactly. This is a crossover episodes. Worlds collide.
This is like the what is it called? Like the Marvel universe. This is like the Unity the Unity expanded universe.
The Unity YouTube expanded universe. Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully, we'll be seeing a little bit more of that. And then that rolls into some of the things we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, I think we've got a good number of people here. I think everyone who was in the old stream is gonna have made it over by now.
Find their way over. Yeah. We were hooked up to Charles's webcam, so we're broadcasting to nobody.
If you guys stream on YouTube, pro tip: I learned this just today. In fact, I learned this mere hours ago. If you schedule a stream, make sure you don't select webcam stream, because then it'll only take input from your webcam and not OBS, which it's trying to think why you'd want that. I guess some people just want an accessible way to stream really quickly from their phone or something. But it doesn't work when you've got like fancy stingers and, Matt and me and like on the screen. It doesn't work for that fancy stuff.
Yeah, totally.
So, Steven says, what if Barles is on the live stream? No, Barles is handling audio. He's
in the background.
We'll have him come on stream one day, maybe. Well, anyway, let's get started here. So, like I said, most of you have probably seen the announcement already. If not, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to answer your questions at the end. And I just wanted to say, Matt, thank you for being here. Appreciate you taking the time to be on the channel.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
I'm trying to think of when we last streamed. Was it 2019? It was a
Yeah, I
while
think
ago.
so. Yeah, pre-pandemic, maybe. I
I
think
think it
so.
was.
I'm not sure, but yeah, it's been a little while since I've visited over here, so I'm happy to be back.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to see more of your face. So thanks again for being here.
Indeed.
Well, Matt and I, we're gonna talk a little bit more about, what that relaunch announcement was all about, and what you can expect to see from the channel and from both of us. But before we did, since this is kind of like a rebirth, a relaunch, I just kind of wanted to lay out my history, the history of the channel, and also just mention like how Matt and I know each other. I thought it'd just be a good opportunity. I know a lot of you have been with us for a long time, been in the Infallible Code community for a long time, so you probably know this story. But just in case anyone's trickling in, they're like, what is this level 2 game dev all about? Who are these folks? I just wanted to share a little bit about myself. So as you've probably heard, and as you can see on the title card, my name is Charles. I've been a software developer for over 10 years now, and I've been a hobbyist game dev for about 6 of those 10 years. I got my start in game dev actually doing commission projects as sort of like a side hustle. My main job for many years has been to work on enterprise level software. It's as boring as it sounds from a requirement standpoint and from what I was actually making, but it was a lot of fun and I learned a lot. But I guess everyone here definitely likes games and is interested in game development. And you probably have felt the itch that I felt 6 years ago when I was just like, I want to make a game. I have ideas and and it seems so interesting. So I cracked open Unity, and long story short, I got in touch with some folks and I started doing projects as a freelancer. You haven't heard of any of these. A lot of people ask me, what games have you made? Send me to your Steam page. I don't have any official games out there. All the projects that I've worked on have been under NDA and have usually been like exhibit apps, like things you see at like a museum. If you go into a museum and there's an interactive exhibit, sometimes those are done in Unity. I've also done like little games for like events, like event activations. So if you've ever been to a big event and you go into a tent and there's like kiosks where you can play a game, chances are, it's possible that I worked on that. So that's kind of how I got my start. And one of the things that led me to making Infallible Code is that, I felt like I was a pretty good programmer. I was a cocky 20-year-old, so I probably wasn't as good as I thought I was, but I thought I was pretty good. And I thought game development, hey, I can translate these skills into game development. Unity was C#. I was programming in C#. Should be easy. But I did find pretty quickly that it isn't a one-to-one. I can't take the MVVM pattern and suddenly cram that into Unity and now I've got a working game. It doesn't work like that, as I learned, and I'm sure as many of you have learned. But I was working on these high pressure projects. I was the only developer on these side projects and I needed to get it done. And that forced me to really learn a lot, to reach out on forums and on, Stack Overflow and to Unity Answers to learn these things very rapidly and under high pressure, which is kind of a good way to learn, actually. And I decided that I wanted to take all those things that I learned and those skills that I had picked up, and I wanted to put them somewhere where I'd have access to them and where I could share them with others and where I could continue to learn. Well, as you know, it turned into what it is today, Infallible Code, where I create tutorials, or I used to create tutorials regularly to help other software developers kind of take their skills and translate them into game development as well. So in that role, I met a lot of other game developers, and one of those game developers was Matt, who was working at Unity at the time. And Matt, why don't you share a little bit about your background and how we sort of crossed paths?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I've been in the games business for maybe 7 or 8 years now, roughly. And actually a lot of that time was working at Unity, the game engine company. It's funny, I used to call myself a corporate YouTuber. doing YouTube videos and stuff for them. I'm making a lot of tutorials and training material and stuff. And through working there, I became aware of the content that you were putting out on Infallible Code, which is actually how we met and started talking to each other. And in that, I was just really a fan of everything that you were doing, and we started to communicate more and more, and slowly over time led to our working together today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, and it's been pretty cool. It's been pretty cool to meet people like you, and it's really opened up a lot of doors. One of the things that happened, as you guys have probably noticed the last year, was that I sort of dropped off. I haven't been making content regularly, and what really happened there is something you've probably all experienced, and that is I burned out, like truly. Just trying to juggle my day job, trying to have some side hobbies of my own outside of YouTube, and also just wanting to spend time with my family. I just got to a point where the production value, the content value was starting to fall below my own standards. And really, as I said in the relaunch trailer you guys saw, like I always wanted to really pursue like high quality content. And when that started to fall off, I just decided to take a break, work on myself, work on my mental health, and just give myself some time to just explore some things that I wanted to look into. And during that period, I actually started working with Matt and his company, Thousand Ant, doing commissions. It's something I've always done in my career, is just side hustles and commissions. And Matt had me develop a tutorial series for Microsoft, which is one of Thousand Ant's clients. And it was great. Matt, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but you and Tom often say as one of
it was great. Yeah.
Well, super profitable projects, super easy.
Totally.
It was, yeah, it was awesome.
No, and that was a really, really, we had seen the work, obviously I was familiar with the work that Charles was doing on Infallible Code. And that was what, so to kind of put some context around it, like what we do at Thousand Ant is actually just a kind of a growth out of what I was doing for Unity of, teaching people to use software and helping companies to kind of reach out and acquire users and mainly developers. And then we started working with some other companies, and Microsoft was one of them. And we were talking to, it's funny, I had a funny moment talking to our client, John at Microsoft, and saying, yeah, we're working on this debugging series, and I think I've got just the right person for it. It's this guy, Charles, or, I think I said, yeah, it's Charles Amat. And he was like, oh, Charles from Infallible Code. I love Infallible Code. So it was like, it was like, oh, amazing. Like perfect, it was a perfect fit. And I'm really proud of the content that we made for them. I think it's really, really, it's about debugging Unity projects in Visual Studio. And we did a 5-part series for them, that they invested in getting made, which was a lot of fun. And we did together with Charles, and it was just a super smooth, fun process, and came out really well. Yeah. And the client was super happy at the end, and we were happy, and we made money, and it was a great result.
Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. And it was sort of a different type of work than I had normally done, because, I have the YouTube channel where I script my own videos, and sometimes I'll kick my scripts over to Jason Story, and he'll tell me this is you got to change your approach completely or whatever. But this time I was working with the team at Thousand Ant, and that was really neat, and to work with the editors. And I think that was probably the first time I saw the power of wow, having people behind me, or with me, I should say, where we can work together and really collaborate. It really it kind of fired me up. And it was around that time that I thought about, maybe it's time, now that I've got this project out of the way, maybe I could start working on the channel again. But something else exciting happened, and that is that Matt and his brother Tom offered me a job to work full time at Thousand Ant, doing what I was doing on commission.
So yeah, exactly. Thanks, yeah. Thank you. No, I mean, it's, and that's been something that, that was 6 months ago.
Yeah. I think I officially started, was it March or April? It was April 1st.
Yeah. I think that sounds right. Yeah. So it's been, so we've been working together for a couple of months, and actually when we first we needed somebody to help us full time with our projects. And this is a lot of work around, I mean, basically kind of like the stuff we were doing for Microsoft, writing scripts, doing a certain amount of development work, recording videos, all this kind of content production that kind of overlaps with development. And Charles was obviously a great fit for that. And that's been going really well. And then, but actually when we first talked about Charles joining the team, it was not about infallible code. We're like, no. And in fact, we explicitly said, no, infallible code is going to remain your thing. That's totally separate. And you keep doing it and do whatever you want, And that was kind of the discussion we had at the time. But then as we kind of started working together more and more and talking about, hey, what are you doing with it? And obviously just as people, both Charles and I spend a lot of time making YouTube videos and thinking about YouTube. So we talk about YouTube all the time, and we're like, well, what are you going to do? And what about this and that? And just kind of through all those conversations, we kind of realized, and also, I mean, you kind of mentioned the kind of burnout topic, and then kind of moved to another subject, but just to come back to that was also something that we were talking about. And this is something that I think not everybody who doesn't make content is aware of, but it's kind of a hard thing to do, especially as you start to have some people watching and enjoying the content, and you've kind of made some kind of commitment, like, hey, we're going to do videos every week or every month or whatever it is. You start to feel a little bit like you're on a treadmill and you kind of have to keep running or fall over. And
Totally. Yeah.
It's a little bit of an intense feeling, and it's not just something that's specific to people making game dev content. It's actually a kind of a known problem across YouTube with all kinds of content creators, this kind of creator burnout issue. And part of that actually is about the fact that it's, I saw a couple of folks in the chat, a lot of people were like, where's Barles? Get to work, Barles. Barles, you can do the work while Charles is working his job. I saw a couple of people saying, oh, are you going to go full time? Are you going to go full time? And actually I think the precise answer is for now, no. But what it comes back to is the fact that, and this is maybe getting a little bit more into how the sausage is made and that not everybody is so interested in, but the truth is most of the ways that YouTubers make money are really not effective or profitable. Like just YouTube ads, for example, don't make any real money, right? And especially when you're dealing with, somebody like me or Charles, who could just go work for some company as a dev or as a marketing person and make a pretty good amount of money. We're both people who are in the middle of our careers. We're not beginners, like we can make good money. So the opportunity cost of putting a lot of time into YouTube is pretty high.
Yeah, especially when, and this is maybe, I won't say my own fault, but I set my own bar. And my bar was high, I think, relatively high, where I was trying to make sure that all my videos were well scripted, well, obviously researched. But then on the, production side of things, I was spending a lot of time making sure that my lighting was good, my audio and visuals were really like top notch, trying to do motion graphics. And let me tell you, like I said it before, I'm a professional software developer. You've heard of programmer art. Everything that you see on the channel was something that I created. And so you're just seeing a ton of programmer art all over my thumbnails and in my videos. And, it was a fun challenge. And this is actually something, again, going into like how the sausage is made, something that I talk with my wife about a lot too, because I bend her ear probably more than she likes about this sort of thing. And it's like, in the beginning, it was a lot about me just trying to figure out the puzzle of how do I do this? How do I get the lighting right? And how do I get the right camera and the right lens? But then once I got past all that, I had really sort of, lack of a better term, like pigeonholed into this place of like every video is a lot of work. Like once I got my workflow and my pipeline down, it's like there's a lot of moving parts, and all worth it, by the way. Like I enjoyed doing it, and I was really happy with what I was putting out, mostly because again, I really wanted to just put out the highest quality content, because I really wanted to just put out the most valuable content.
Yeah.
You know, there was other creators like Bracky's in the space who was also putting high quality, and I don't want to like name drop because I don't want to leave anyone out. What do you got?
Well, no, I was just going to say, Bracky's is like a perfect example of someone who is doing amazing work, creating
Oh
great
yeah,
content, and then just kind of quit out of nowhere. And everybody's like, what happened?
yeah,
And honestly, he's a friend of mine. Like it was basically the same thing. He realized he had created this momentum and this thing that he was kind of, after a while, he was like, I mean, I don't want to like speak for him or whatever, but that he was trying to keep up with. And it got to the point where he was like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, And I think that is like one of the motivations for this team up is trying to figure out, hey, can we, by doing this in a little bit of a more kind of professional, for lack of a better term, way, right? We have a team like, at Thousand Ant, we have people who do production, we have people who do video editing, right? Like, and trying to get the team together and apply it to the work that Charles was doing up to now, but to the point where Charles is not having to do every single thing by himself and kind of run to keep up with the train. And then also, importantly, the other side of that is, excuse me, the other side of that is trying to improve the business model behind the channel, right? So trying to figure out, how do we make the channel make money and be worthwhile for somebody who is a software developer and could just be out doing software developer work and making good money doing it? How do you make it worthwhile so that you're not kind of like paying tons of money to do your hobby by not earning income, right? So that is kind of like the other side of it. And that's something that we're going to be like working on together and developing more and more. And part of it is that, and part of the way like that we answer that channel, the part of the way that we answer that question for the Thousand Ant channel, we have the agency business, right? So we do client projects, the client projects pay the bills, they pay everybody's salary. And then we turn around and we do YouTube and other things, kind of partly as marketing for what we do, but also just because it's fun and we like to do it, right? And so that's partly now kind of the model that's going to be supporting infallible code. But we also want to try to figure out, hey, what else can we do with the channel to make the channel something that makes money and adds value to the community while doing that, right? Not in a crappy way that, that doesn't add value. But just to make this something really sustainable, right? So we don't have a kind of a Bracky's type sudden exit, like, hey, everything looks like it's going great, and then where to go? So,
yeah. Yeah, so that pretty much sums it up, and that's the backstory. That's, where we were, how we arrived to where we're at now. But I think what's most pertinent to you guys is like, what exactly does that mean to you? And really, to sum it up, and we're going to go into detail, but to sum it up, our focus now is to figure out how we can bring you the most valuable content, content that we're calling level 2 game dev content. This is something we've talked about in the past. Jason and I have brought it up. Matt, when we had our stream, we talked about it, and it's this concept of and I want to choose my words carefully because I don't want to diminish the content that's on the platform. There's a ton of content that is very helpful if you're getting into game development. And that's one of the great things about Unity as a game engine, is that it makes it so accessible, which I think is great. I'm going to kind of go on a tangent here. One of the things that I've said before, I really, really do believe that everyone has a unique experience. And I think that game development, or games rather, is a great medium for sharing those experiences. We see tons of awesome story-driven games. And even if they're not story-driven games, even if they're RTSs or things like that, your experiences are coming out through those games. AAA games, they tell great stories, but when indie game developers start putting their creativity forward, we've seen some amazing indie games pop up all over the place on Steam and other platforms, and a lot of them are made in Unity. And so level 2 content is about helping those people who have stories to tell, who have maybe broached the subject of game development. Maybe they've downloaded Unity. Maybe you've even made a couple of little prototypes or something that, kind of works and you can release it. We want to take you guys and we want to help you elevate your skills to this place where you have true confidence in what you're developing, and you can make better decisions about how you're implementing these ideas in the form of games. And that's really what it kind of comes down to, is just taking your game dev hobby or even your career, even if you want to work for a studio, and you don't want to be an indie game developer and tell your story, but you want to participate in telling someone else's story, that's fine too. We want to help you elevate your skills and give you the confidence you need to really just shine as best you can in that role.
Yeah, and I think, like, just to chime into that, Random Rabbit Studio in the chat is saying, yeah, I feel like I've outgrown most of the content on YouTube, and where do I go next, right? And that's something that, again, like you say, there's a really, really valuable place for that kind of beginner oriented, or your first game jam, or here's how to just really quickly hack something together, right? But I definitely had that experience. I mean, I'm still I've only been in game development for a few years, and I definitely can remember the time when I was like, okay, I know how to do all this basic stuff, but now I'm trying to put it all together into something that is like a little bit bigger. And I just kind of felt like I was stacking Jello on top of Jello, right? And it was all just wobbling and falling over, right? And so I think that is kind of one of the themes that we want to try to address, right? Is to say, hey, yeah, you've taken your first steps, you've already done your first game jam, maybe you've done your first small games or projects, and now you're kind of thinking, okay, yeah, I think I kind of understand what this is about, and I want to go further. And that's something that we want to try to speak to. And I think that's one of the things that was also one of the conversations that Charles and I were having as we were getting ready to kind of do this relaunch, was starting to really focus in on, well, because now, we're running two channels, right? The 1000 Ant channel and the Infallible Code channel. Okay, what are these channels really going to be about, and who are they for? And kind of just deepening that or sharpening that focus, right? So that we can say, yeah, this is, over at Infallible Code, you're going to get really well thought out programming focused, game development focused tutorials, that show best practices and things that can actually scale and go into kind of real larger projects. And then over on the 1000 Ant channel, the idea is that, I've been kind of a little bit all over the place. And actually Jason, who's in the chat, kind of gave me that feedback. He was like, oh, I don't really know what you're going to do next over on that channel, which was really good. Right. And now it was a kind of a process of experimentation. But one of the things that I kind of realized there is that one of the gaps that there is in some of the Unity game dev or just game dev content on YouTube is more around the business side of things, which is something now that is actually mainly what I do is think about financing, contracts, schedules, teams, and trying to kind of make things happen from the business side, which is really important. Even if you're a solo game dev, right, you need to kind of make sure that for example, you've got enough money, right? That you're going to make it, you're going to be able to, like you're going to get there. You're not going to die in the desert, right? So I'm going to be talking, shifting the focus of the TA channel a little bit to focus more on those things. And we'll see, it may shift again later on if that gets boring, but for now, that's kind of the idea. And we're going to kind of split the two channels so you can have a kind of a more, well, split, but they remain separate, but to give a clear focus to each channel. But Charles and I are going to be kind of working together on both and helping to grow both.
Yeah. So like we're trying to give you the complete package. Obviously we won't be able to do that with just our two channels because there's such a breadth of content to cover. So you'll definitely be hearing as a part of this level 2 game dev, like we call it an initiative or idea or concept, collective, community. I like community. We will definitely be introducing, our friends. We've already been talking about Jason's story a lot in the channel or in the chat here. You'll definitely be hearing from our friends as well in the space who have their own parts to share as well.
Yeah, and I think the Taylor series here in the chat is saying he's like, or they're saying, I see a lot of people, here's how you create an FPS controller, but then they take dozens of little shortcuts in the tutorial, right? And those are the kind of shortcuts that if you put them in a game jam, it's fine, right? But then you put them into a bigger project and it's going to fall over, right? But a lot of folks, and in that context, maybe that's appropriate, but then you do need a place to learn, okay, but what if I actually want to put this into a game and really use it? What is a better way to think about this, or what are kind of some of the tools that I need to think about this? And that's hopefully what we can share. We can share here. And that's also just to continue. That's part of the reason why we're starting the newsletter, is to also gather together content that we find that we can kind of point to and say, yeah, we think this really shows a level of quality, or there's something about this that we think is really worth kind of putting into this category and sharing it, right? So it's not just us standing up and be like, we're the best, we know everything, but more just about saying, hey, there is a need for this type of content and we want to share it with you.
Yeah. Well, you brought up the newsletter. I don't think we've officially mentioned that project, did we?
No, I guess not. I jumped ahead.
No, you're good. No. Well, so yeah, Matt mentioned this is the very first project that we're embarking on. And by the way, Matt and I talk about this YouTube thing a lot. And when I say this YouTube thing, it really is like, we talk about how can we make content that's going to be most valuable to you guys, because that's really what our channels are all about. And one of the projects that we have been talking about a lot recently is this newsletter, this level 2 game dev newsletter. Now, I know that people, I know my email box is filled with emails that I don't want to get, but I have a couple of newsletters that I am subscribed to that we're kind of emulating, and they're just basic text formed emails with a couple of paragraphs, a couple of links, and that's really what we want to do. Our focus is, we don't want to come up with some gimmicky thing with a bunch of links to our partners and affiliates. No, we just want to share some of the things that we're talking about. Working at 1000 Amp, we work with a lot of big companies. We work on a lot of cool projects, and we're always coming across things that are super valuable to us. We're always learning on our own. That's the kind of content that we want to put into this newsletter, and we'll include our videos. We'll include content from our friends in the space, and by the way, it's monthly. So once a month, you'll just get an email from us, just kind of sharing what we've been looking at. And what we've seen and what we think is going to be super valuable, what's been valuable to us, and we'll just kind of pass that along to you guys. I'm actually going to drop a link real quick in the chat. You can find a link if you'd like to sign up for the newsletter, but I'll drop a link in the chat.
Yeah, it's in the description too, of the description box of the stream. But yeah, I think that's a great description, and it's like pretty much everything that we're doing. It's an experiment, right? We're going to see where it goes and see if people find it valuable. But I think that I've found there's a couple of people doing newsletters lately, and there's been a kind of a bunch of them, people doing Substack and people doing paid newsletters, which is not what we're trying to do here. But there have been a bunch of people doing just really good, really thoughtful newsletters with original content. And, one of the, and that I've just been reading and really enjoying. So I'm like, actually, this is a kind of format that I like. And I mean, this is a little bit of a rant and a sidebar, but one of the things that I'm kind of seeing with YouTube as a platform, and Twitter and a lot of these other social platforms, is that there are these algorithmically generated feeds. So even if you subscribe to us and follow us and say, yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear, send me all of their updates, you might not get it. Right. And so email is one of those things where it's like, no, I have your email. I send you the email once a month. You're actually going to get it, and you're going to know about what we're doing. Right. Which is it's a whole other rant about platforms and, the evils of centralized technology platforms. But, I think email is a kind of a way, it's a little bit of a lo-fi old school kind of way to take back some of that and make sure that we as a community can actually keep in touch, without having to, sell somebody's ad space or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then have to compete with, like you said, the algorithm, which is such a pain in the butt and such a killer too. Some great creators on this platform I've seen succumb to the algorithm just not sharing their content.
Yeah. Or every thumbnail has to be like this. Oh my God.
I think I have a couple where I'm like,
like every video has to be like, it's a disaster. No, actually, it's actually not a disaster at all. I just had to put that in the thumbnail so you click on the video. Like it's ridiculous. It's a very strange moment in these platforms.
Some clickbaity title. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Everything is over. And you're like, oh my God.
It's like, why Unity's the worst game engine? And then it's like, hey guys, I love Unity. Just kidding.
Just kidding.
It's the worst game engine for making web apps.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
you son of a damn you algorithm.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, yeah, it's a funny thing, but like you as a content creator, you end up spending a lot of time thinking about it. You're like, well, is this, if I make this, and that's actually, I mean, that's not to, jump ahead, but that is one of the things that Charles and I are thinking about, are what are some other ways besides YouTube that we can serve this audience, right? Because YouTube has this thing of like, YouTube really likes a kind of a 10 to 20 minute video with a thumbnail of somebody going like this, and certain kind of packages of content, which are not always the best way to deliver the kind of educational material that we want to do, right? So that's something that we're thinking about as well, is what are some kind of other ways that we can serve the community and reach people, Yeah. And the email list is kind of like the first step in that direction.
That's the first step. I wish I could share some of the other ideas we have, because we've got a ton of them, and some of them may not come to fruition, but we've got some other things in the works. So definitely keep an eye out. If you're subscribed to the newsletter, you'll hear about it, because that'll definitely be like our first, point of communication.
Exactly.
And then, occasionally we'll do streams like this. So that's pretty much wraps up, I guess, the announcement. And, I guess just to kind of sum it up, me, Matt, Thousand Ant, and our team over there, we're focused on providing the best value we can to you guys. We really want to help this community take their skills to the next level. We've already seen a lot of you who joined, earlier on in the life of our channels really grow. We have a Discord server, and I've seen people join the Discord server asking a bunch of questions to suddenly becoming the person answering the questions the most on the Discord server. And that's, just seeing that community growth. That's why we do it. Truly. It's great to see. It's great to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. Just echoing that. I think it's super, super cool to see folks taking the content and, developing things and going ahead and starting careers and starting companies and making games and stuff. So just super cool to be a part of that. Well, I think so. As we promised, we would open the floor to some questions. I know a couple folks were dropping questions in, and we can scroll back, to find some more. Thank you, Liam. Super kind of you to say. Liam Sorta in the chat says he loves what we're doing. Big heart emoji to you.
Random
Great
Rabbit
to see
Studio.
you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate you all. Really, really great to see you guys here. Love the engagement. I mean, I love our streams because you guys are so engaging. This is great. Yeah, so I saw a good question, and drop your questions in the chat. I saw a question earlier come through. This is a Unity question. Is there anything you are particularly looking forward to with the upcoming Unity C# features? Matt, you got anything you're looking forward to?
Whoa, that's a good question. I was just thinking about it. The thing that I'm looking forward to and that I'm kind of intrigued by with Unity is something that actually one of the developers that we work with at Thousand Ant was saying, Porith, was that he had grabbed, I don't know which version it is, but basically the new alpha. And he was like, and this is a little shit talky, so I love you, Unity. But like, he was like, I grabbed the new alpha and like my project opened really fast. And like, it all just compiled really fast. And we were all like, is Unity getting faster? Like, what is going on? So kind of not what we've been seeing lately, right? So, so that I'm kind of excited about, to just see. I mean, I think broadly obviously I worked at Unity, right? So I tease them a lot and talk smack about them, but I do, I'm a diehard Unity user. But the one of the things I think we're seeing in terms of Unity's backend is a real focus on things like iteration time. So stuff like compilation time, right? For me, just like enter play mode. Oh, I forgot to assign the reference. Exit play mode. Enter play mode again. Oh, I forgot to hook up the UI. And exit play mode. Enter again, right? And when every one of those steps takes, I don't know, X number of seconds, that adds up really fast. So I'm kind of excited to see that they're focusing on getting those kind of iteration time loops quicker and quicker. I think that's going to be like a huge quality of life
Yeah.
improvement.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of cool things to really optimize the editor. I know one. This is kind of a feature that probably passed by a lot of people. It did me. They have this. Oh shoot, what's it called? It's like when your project has like an exception in it or something, and you open it. It's like, oh, it starts in like safe mode. It's
Yeah.
like it's such a small thing, but
No,
it's huge. You know, it becomes a huge
it's
thing.
not
When all
that
this,
small. It's not that small. Yeah, yeah. Well, back in the
it's
battle
not
days.
sexy, you know.
Yeah. Well, but what I have to say is, and I see some good questions coming in, so we'll come to those. But what I have to say is, I actually really appreciate the focus on some of this less sexy, less splashy, big new whole tool,
Yeah,
or big graphics, something or other. Right? There's a lot of this under the hood stuff that I think Unity has really got the message on of, hey, this is really daily pain points for devs, and we're gonna work on it and improve it, and we're seeing that stuff rolling out. And it's not the kind of stuff where you can be like, do a big launch and whoa, look at that new flashy features, right? It's kind of more workday stuff, but I think it's actually like kind of shows that they're listening to the community and making stuff that we need, probably more than some big flashy new feature.
yeah. I'm super excited about, on that note, the new UI system for the actual editor, where they're allowing you to actually like hook in, and so if you do a lot of tooling, which you should be tooling for your game,
Yeah.
you can create your own built-in tools like that actually work into the editor, and there's this whole thing where like you can put your own little icons in the scene and the scene view, and yeah, so that's something I'm really excited about, and you'll definitely probably be seeing that on the channel as it gets developed.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that is one of the great powers of Unity, the ability to extend the editor, and it's something that actually it's a good little topic for us to to think about and focus on, because it's not something that a lot of other people are covering either. So there's definitely a little gap there to fill. I saw Turkey Jerky saying in the chat, I remember Jason Wyman saying people don't make many Unity intermediate tutorials on YouTube because they don't get much traffic. That's exactly right. And this is kind of the problem with the nature of YouTube, which is basically an entertainment platform, right? And then you're trying to do some kind of fairly hardcore programming topics. First of all, there's just the fact that it's more advanced just means there's less people, period, who know advanced topics or are interested in them. And then it's also less exciting and sexy than some new graphics feature, for example. It's less visual, right? And so it's hard to attract traffic to those kind of things. So the kind of nature of YouTube as a platform kind of works against that, right? And for example, if you're trying to monetize with ad revenue, it doesn't really work, right? Because you do a lot of work to research and create this advanced content, and then you get tiny views, right? And that's why you see lots and lots of people being like, how to make your first FPS controller, how to make your first, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a bigger audience for that, right? Which totally makes sense. And people need to make money, right? So yeah.
And then another, like on that same note, another thing that happened to me was, you get new features like ECS and dots and all that.
Yeah.
And, I actually really liked those. And I don't think I really anticipated at the time how niche those things were, those features, but how prevalent they would eventually become in the community. Like, I think a lot of people looked at like ECS or in dots as sort of like a silver bullet. Like, oh wow, like this is gonna solve all my game dev problems. I'm just gonna write all my code using dots and ECS. And I get it. I kind of had that mentality a little bit too, because it's the first time that Unity was like, hey, we're getting behind a pattern, like an architectural pattern. Just code like this. You know what I mean? Like when you do web apps, it's like it's some MV star, architectural pattern. You don't really have to think about anything other than I'm just developing a page. What do I need to put in the view or whatever, and what data source? It was the same for ECS. It's like, okay, well that makes sense. I can just define what my components are. My systems will run, and I hook them up, and it works, and that's kind of nice. Unfortunately, though, we're still waiting. I think I forgot who
Yeah.
said it up here. Oh, Rowan said and DOS has been around the corner for like 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's going to continue to be the case. Honestly, I think that the nature, the direction that Unity is going in, that I was kind of praising, of focusing on quality of life features, stability, speed of iteration, those kind of features, is probably a little bit counter to their kind of bold new future idea with dots. I know that dots is still being worked on, and that it's not, it hasn't been shelved or anything. I've talked to people recently who have like confirmed that to me. But I think that, and again, this is more like rumors and things that I hear, right? So this is not like official information, but like, I think that there was a moment where they were really like, everything is going to turn into dots, right? The whole, mono behavior is going to go away.
Yeah.
Dots is the future. And I think that idea, or at least maybe there's discussion among them about backing away from that idea, right? That it's not necessarily dots or nothing. That I think that the mono behavior universe and the dots universe are probably going to go coexist more in the future. And I think that that's, from my perspective, I think that's a pretty healthy attitude and approach, right? Because if you think about it, the dots is a hyper optimized CPU, basically CPU access architecture, right? That you're getting all your memory really tightly aligned, and you're eliminating cache misses on the CPU, right? That's really like the great value of, I mean, there's multiple things about it that are good, right? But that's a big part of it. And that's where a lot of the speed is coming from. Yeah. Well, that means you have to have data that, or a complex simulation, let's say, that runs on the CPU, right? And if you know people who are doing a lot of crazy calculation stuff, a lot of them are just going to put it into a compute shader and run it on the GPU, right? All these devices now have tons of compute power in the GPUs, right? And you actually have to kind of really start thinking like, well, okay, no, not this, because if, physics, we can do it on the GPU, but maybe this kind of thing, we need to do it on the CPU, and like lots of AI calculations, okay, where they need to have the data to pass back and forth between threads or whatever it is. I mean, I'm also not a super expert about this stuff, right? So, take all this with a big grain of salt.
I don't think anyone is.
big flakes of salt. But I think that, it's, I don't want to say it's a niche case, but it's not that it's like, oh yeah, obviously everything needs this, you know?
It doesn't cover like a broad use case.
Yeah. So I think it makes a little bit of sense to say, hey, there are cases where this is going to be super powerful and useful. And if you are willing to put everything inside of this, you're going to get some crazy things that become possible. But, I think the thing that's really held back their progress is integrating it with all the other features like animation and anything else, right? Which is the great value of Unity, that like, I've got an animation system, I've got an audio system, I've got a shading system, right? And if now we're all off in this kind of unique CPU architecture and we can't actually really talk to those things in a robust way, it's kind of like, oh, well, so I think that's the kind of problem that they have to solve. And we'll see.
I remember one of my first videos on the subject. I did like a side-by-side. I developed, like a simple character controller with animations in just vanilla Unity, and then I did it with ECS, and I got to the animation and I was like, wait a second, like, there's no animation. And then I went online, I went on like Stack Overflow or whatever, and it's like a bunch of workarounds, and I was like, I don't want to put a workaround in a video, like that's not educational. So I ended up just saying like, hey, here's the side-by-side, by the way, the other one doesn't have animation because it's not there,
It doesn't work. It doesn't exist yet. Yeah. And it will, I think, or they'll come up with some coherent solution for that, but that's a big job, right? So I think that's, what they, that's that's the bridge they have to cross. And that's probably why it's taking a long time, you know?
Don't we have a video on the schedule about this? Is it the job system though? Because the
Yeah.
job system
So
is kind of separate.
yeah. Well, actually, no, it's true. And that's a good plug. Good point. So actually we have a video that was actually originally created for the 1000 Ant channel. And then when we kind of partnered up, we're like, actually, this is a better video to come out on Infallible Code. So you'll be seeing that soon, which is about rendering, doing instanced rendering, which is actually written by Porth, one of the developer who I mentioned earlier, who works with us at TA. Yeah, hey Porth. Shout out to Porth. Porth Song, super smart guy.
Super smart.
And this is about doing instance rendering using the job system, no ECS, no. I think it uses a burst compiler, but it's basically, I can't remember exactly, but it's burst, but definitely uses the job system. And it's an important thing. There are, like the burst compiler, for example, is kind of just free money, like free speed that you can put on a lot of things now and just works. And you don't have to change tons of stuff, you know? So there are big parts of dots that you can grab and use now. And that's actually, we did a couple of videos on the TA channel about flocking, using the job system, but going back to mono behaviors, right? And using Cinemachine and using all the existing mono behavior stuff, but just slotting the job system in there to make this CPU simulation faster. And so that's kind of how the content we've been making around it is, okay, how can we use this now? What are the cases now where this is going to make existing games that use the existing architecture faster? And yeah, so good plug. There'll be a video coming soon on Infallible Code.
Hey, this ain't my first rodeo.
Yeah, totally. Marketing muscle there.
Great questions. I saw, we got a question for Matt from Jason.
Yeah, so perfect.
Oh, that's so funny.
A perfect plug
so
also
funny.
from Jason. So wink, wink. So Jason and I actually, same category. Jason and I actually worked on a video about data structures, which I'm super excited about. I personally think it's a really good video because Jason wrote it. And it kind of fell into the same category. I was like, you know what? We actually made it originally to put out on 1000 Ant. But as we kind of started this process of teaming up the two channels, we realized, hey, you know what, this is actually a much better fit for Infallible Code. And so that's another video that's going to be coming out over here soon. So,
Thanks,
we're
Jason.
not just saying that we're going to be making videos. And actually, Jason, you'll be happy to hear that we're going to replace my voiceover with Charles's. That's the next step.
Damn, I should have saved that for my channel.
Yeah.
Thanks for.
But it's coming. I would say it's coming in exactly
in a week, the first, right?
Let's not commit. Is that one first?
God, yeah, that's the first thing. In
that's first. Okay, we got to get out the schedule
never
spreadsheet.
Commit.
Yeah,
it's coming out eventually.
It's coming. No, it's actually coming next week on Friday. So we're going to start the bi-weekly upload schedule for Infallible Code next Friday with a video written by Jason Story,
voiced by me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason. Another question. Are we planning on doing content about URP or HDRP? I don't know. What do you think?
Good question.
I'm sure there's an opportunity there. But you know, this channel is really going to be focused on more of like the development and programming side and like approaches. So if there's an interesting angle that we can explore, maybe.
I think, that's actually shout out to Josh Vaughn, who's in the chat here. So Josh is the newest member of the 1000 Ant team, and he is our lead tech artist. He's actually also a developer. So he's like he's like a mega jack of all trades, triple threat kind of guy. Super happy to have him working with us. And so Josh has actually been doing all of the 3D art and technical art stuff for the team. And none of that stuff has made it to YouTube yet, but it probably will. And that is a question actually of, are we going to put that on TA? Or are we going to put that on Infallible Code? What are we going to do? So there's actually a little bit of an open question there. Where is the art and kind of tech art content going to go? But there is going to be some actually. So that's something we're figuring out. I mean, it's definitely still a work in progress here.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Josh says we'll need more channels. I mean, it's funny. You joke, but I still have my old Matt Mirafish channel, which is just sitting there. And I'm thinking about actually maybe starting to put the space game content over there. So we might be running 3 channels. I don't know. Well, I mean, that's actually a question for you, chat. Like, what do you think about that from a kind of a user experience perspective? Would you prefer to be subscribed to one channel that's doing multiple different types of content? Or would you prefer to subscribe to 3 or 4 channels that do kind of predictable things, right? Like if you want to find out what's happening with the Untitled Cute Space Game, you subscribe to this channel over here. You don't really care about what this other content is. Let us know in the chat. I'm actually curious. Yeah, highly fallible art, says Josh. There you go. Title is done. It's ready to go.
Yeah, and just to say, like, we're not really saying we're gonna like spin off a bunch of like side channels. It's more of like, when I think of like the level 2 concept or community, I look at it like as this umbrella. There's tons of people out there making great content already that, you know, is what we think like is level 2. And what we're trying to do is just aggregate all that and to sort of like become like a dream team, so to speak, of these.
Oh, snap.
What happened?
He said dream team.
Oh no. So
no, I mean, I like the sentiment though, and actually shout out to Matt Gamble from Gamedev Guide, who's just joined the channel, who just joined the chat as well. Another amazing YouTuber. If you guys don't know his channel, go check it out. And he's also someone who we've collaborated with a ton at Thousand Ant, actually. Just a great all-around guy. So yeah, go follow him if you're not following him already. And he's definitely someone who, yeah. And actually it's funny because here he is, he's saying focus channels always perform better. He's actually one of the people who was kind of talking in my ear being like, hey, you need to focus, you need to get this clearer for the audience. So that's definitely someone who's been giving us some good advice.
I saw someone mention that we're missing Jason Wyman. Yeah, we got someone ping him, get him in the chat.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, Anon says, I prefer multiple focus channels, but you only if you have the manpower, don't want you to burn out again. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key, right? And that's actually part of why we've gone to twice a month frequency on both channels, right? I was previously doing, not consistently, but my target was 4 videos a month on Thousand Ant, and Charles' previous schedule was 4 videos a month over here. And for both of us, that was a lot of work and not totally sustainable. So now we're kind of saying, okay, the 2 of us are working on these, but we're going to do 4 videos a month across the 2 channels, and hopefully at a higher quality level. We'll see. But that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
And then when folks come back to the channel, they know what they're getting, right? And if you're not interested in hearing me talk about business and funding and contracts and stuff, then you don't need to, subscribe to Thousand Ant. And if you're not a programmer, then you're probably not going to enjoy the content at Infallible Code as much, right. So yeah. So Arseni asks, why does Unity have a bad reputation for slow code on C#? Is it the garbage collection? I would say actually that nowadays, I think that that's a little bit of a lagging reputation. Unity has done a lot to address speed. And, I would ask, compared to what? Are you comparing this to like a native C++ engine that someone's going to write themselves in OpenGL or whatever? The truth is, across the industry, unless you're doing like a retro kind of Doom-like or some kind of super customized like voxel thing, like the people that Teardown did or something like that, very few people are writing custom engines outside of the kind of EA, Frostbite, DICE kind of size groups, because it's getting to the point with writing an engine that it's just a whole big job in and of itself, right? So I don't know. I don't want to weigh in too heavily on that. I know there's definitely people who are pro write your own engine, and I think it's good to have diversity in approaches. But I would say from a commercial perspective, like if you're trying to run a company that makes money, almost anybody, if you went to investors and said, hey, we're making a mobile game and we're writing our own engine, you would get a lot of questions about why the heck are you doing that?
Oh yeah.
You would need to have good answers for.
Yeah. Like you'd have to have like a really specific use case that required it. And even then I can't think of too many.
Yeah. No, I think it's unless there's some like super unique tech that, you know, that you can't do in some existing platform, like it's going to be like, people are going to be like, that's a bad idea, in my opinion. You know, I'm just reading back in the chat a little bit.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I feel like that's more of a lagging sentiment because I really haven't heard too much of that lately. And you know, they're doing a lot. Unity's doing a lot to like make sure that they're up to date with the latest, you know, language features of C Sharp, and you know, they're doing a lot there to support .NET. So I think it's a moot point at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, Jason Story makes a great analogy in the chat. He's like, you know, what's faster, you and a, you know, with water in a basin or a dishwasher, right? And it's like, it's maybe you could technically wash the dishes faster by hand, but what else could you be doing with that time, right? I think that's probably the biggest question with a game engine. Like, shouldn't you be making a game that you can sell? Because unless you're getting ready to sell that engine, which, I mean, spoiler alert, is going to be really, really hard to do, competing against like, you know, Unity or even some of the open source stuff like Godot, you know, it's like, you still have to make the game after you made the engine, right? So that's a tough one. Yeah, I think it's a great analogy.
Not to mention from a business standpoint as well, you know, if you want to be able to hire other developers and artists and you know, other people to collaborate on a project, which you should be thinking about, you want to be able to pool from a pool of professionals who have worked with, you know, you don't want to have to like onboard everyone and be like, okay, this is our engine. Let me get, you know, spend a month teaching you the ins and outs of it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, that's really important, right? Like for us in our agency business, right? We need to hire people. Like we do, you know, freelance projects. So we're like, okay, we got a project. We need these people. We need a tech artist and an animator and a, you know, and a 3D modeler or whatever it is. And we do not want to be like, oh, what do you use? Oh, you use some totally custom pipeline that we've never heard of. Like, and
Yeah.
you're off into like, it's like, what? Like, we need people like, okay, you're using Blender and this and that. And like, okay, yep, those are all tools that we know and understand. We know how to take that into our pipeline, right? Once you start getting off into like your own universe, it gets a lot less commercial really fast. And just being able to onboard people, be like, you know, if you're like a Unity shop or an Unreal shop, you bring people in, you'd be like, we're on Unreal. You know how to use Unreal? Yeah. Okay. Get to work, you know, like, and away you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking about engines, someone actually asked earlier, I'm sorry, I forgot who it was, and I'm trying to scroll up and find it, but if we're going to be doing other content or content about other engines like Godot, for example. And it's possible. I think it's possible.
Yeah, I would never say never. I'm somebody who's I mean, this is really more of a question for Charles. So you heard what he said, but like, you know, I'm a big fan of open source in general. And I think what Blender has done and the way they've created a real viable alternative to Maya is really cool and convincing. And I do think that we're going to start seeing that in the game engine space. I think that the big thing for that to become a commercial opportunity is supporting consoles, right? Which so far we haven't seen really. Like somebody mentioned, Pedro C mentions, he says, yeah, Unity multiple platform support is awesome. Most people with custom engines are supporting Windows or Linux, right? And that's it.
Yeah.
And if you're in a commercial, if you're making games commercially, you know, maybe you don't necessarily want to go to PlayStation 5 now, but you do not want to be into a situation where you're like, I don't even know if my game could go to PlayStation 5 if somebody offered me money to do it, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're on Unity or Unreal, you know for sure that with some modest amount of work, it's going to compile and run on the dev kit and you can do it, you know?
Yeah.
Which I think is key. Yeah.
Vitor actually asked a question that kind of plays into this. He asked, "Will we get more code design and architectural videos?" And I think yes. And I think because yes, it does make sense to perhaps eventually cover those same approaches in another engine, just to show how universally applicable they are. The solid principles is a favorite one here on the platform. Gets a lot of search volume, and I think you can apply them equally in Godot and Unity. And I think there's some value in showing how these concepts that we're going to be covering, they're universal. They're just approaches to creating software. And that, at the end of the day, that's what games end up being. They're just pieces of software. And then the game engines are the tools we use to create them. So yeah, I would say, to answer your question, Vitor, yes, I'll definitely be covering that. And then to answer the previous question about Godot, I imagine that eventually we'll probably put out like a Godot series or whatever engine you could think of that has some coding. Unreal, I think it's all blueprints. I think they're like opening up a little bit these days to more programming, but it's possible that maybe we'll dive into that too.
Yeah, well, Unreal, it's like, there's various scripting. I don't know enough about Unreal.
I don't know enough either.
It's C++. If you want to like write game code as code, you have to write it in C++.
Oh, okay.
And that is, can be a blocker for a lot of people. Yeah, I think that the architecture topic is, well, actually, this video that we've got in collaboration with Jason Story is very much up that alley. But I think Jason has spoken eloquently about this before. I think that a lot of people want to be told, oh yes, just go and use this pattern, right? When the nature of games is kind of different from enterprise or websites in that they're really different applications, right? They need to do really different kinds of things. And so are going to benefit from different approaches. And so one of the things I think that we're trying to focus on is teaching principles and approaches and kind of concepts and ways of thinking about things, rather than saying, hey guys, here's this pattern. Just here's a hammer, go bang some things with it, right? Which I think can get people into trouble, especially, I know I went through this when I first started to learn, and I was like, oh, I know how to make a singleton.
Oh, no.
I'm everything is going through this. It's going to be Grand Central, and it's like, that's the danger of a little bit of knowledge, right? Or somebody gives you like a powerful pattern, right? And you're like, oh, great, bam, like it's put this right in the middle of everything, and then your project is like,
yeah. Or like, getting a good dependency injection framework and like, oh, this will solve all my problems. I remember when I first discovered Zenject. Yeah, it'll do everything for me. Yeah. Pokemon Go uses it. So I can use it too.
That's the thing, right? So we're trying to be a little bit more bottom up, for lack of a better term, right? To teach you some kind of principles and some concepts that will hopefully then allow you to kind of Lego together an approach and an architecture that actually makes sense, instead of just being like, yeah, just use a singleton, don't use a singleton, right? But, giving you kind of prescriptive advice.
There are use cases for the singleton. I haven't seen them,
yeah,
but they're out there.
No, there's a use case for everything, right? Yeah. Like there's it's just another, hey, Roman is here. Yeah. Cool. Good to see you, Roman. Awesome. Everybody check out Roman's channel. It's really, really good. He's got some great projects over there. Awesome. Oh, so cool to see everybody. It's funny. Yeah. I haven't done any kind of stream in a while, so it's super fun to be on here with everybody. Nicholas Richer or Richer, I don't know how you pronounce that wherever you are, but is asking, are you guys planning to make purchasable courses, or are you just focused on YouTube right now? All I will say is, good question. Very Great good question. Yeah.
I like where your head's at. Hey, Mert's here as well. How's it going,
awesome.
Guys? Hi, Mert.
And then Pedro's asking, I'd love a video about behavior trees. Doesn't seem very beginner friendly, since it's not as easy to implement as a simple finite state machine. I love that as a suggestion. I've actually, in my Untitled Cute Space games, I haven't really been teaching about it, but I've been using some behavior tree AI over on the 1000 Ant channel and some of the recent devlogs, using the asset store asset behavior designer, which is where I would start if you're interested in learning behavior trees. It's, I think, a nice implementation. And the folks over at Opsiv, who make it are good people and support the products and stuff. So, and it's been out for years and years now. I think it's like 7-8 years old and works great. So I would start there, and then maybe you want to roll your own off of that, or, you get some ideas and you want to roll your own, but that's a really good place to start and just start working with the concept. This is a really funny recommendation, but the thing that got me excited about learning behavior trees is a game called Gladiabots. It's like gladiators, but robots. And it's literally just a behavior tree game with these little AI robots, and you build AI for the little robot squads with behavior trees. It's actually a Unity game. It's made by this guy, Graphics 47, who's a French guy. He's got a new game coming out, I think. But Gladiabots is great, and that's actually the first place if you want to just play with behavior trees and get a feeling for how they work and think about, maybe does this work in my game? I really recommend Gladiabots as a kind of a behavior tree playground, and then Behavior Designer is a really good place to start playing in Unity. But I really like them as a kind of a step above finite. There's a lot of stuff you can just do with a finite state machines. Most simple video games of a finite state machine is totally enough. But then once you get into stuff where it's more open environments, or maybe it's procedural environments, or they need to respond to funny situation, the agents need to respond to funny situations, behavior trees give you a really nice amount of flexibility, and they're just kind of fun. They're fun to design. Big fan.
Yeah, you can really go down the rabbit hole, trying to piece together behaviors.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so Cree Arthur says, audio manager singleton is great. You can call it from everywhere and you only want one. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have done that in many projects, right? And it's not, you don't need to, you could call the audio with events, and you don't need to spaghettify too much. And yeah, exactly. Could be fine, right? Music, right? You don't want to play multiple pieces of music at the same time. Could work, right? Music player, singleton. Yeah, there's definitely places where you can use it. Yeah. All right, cool. Penny DeBill at Holistic 3D has some good behavior tree stuff. Oh, good recommendation. I'm not familiar.
I'm gonna pull that. I think I've started that series. He has a series. Good recommendations. I love getting recommendations, guys.
Totally. And then 11 SVEDN or 11 Sweden ask, how about a straightforward A-star pathfinding video? I mean,
there's a lot of them out there.
Charles says sure, right? So you've got one vote there. My thing about that is that exactly, there's a lot of them out there. I would start with Sebastian Lagg's series on that. He did a really good, detailed A-star from the ground up series, and I don't think we need to reproduce it, to be honest. I'm a big believer in if somebody's done a series really well, and it's there and it's free and it's available, it's I don't think we need to do it. But maybe there's some, and honestly, when it comes to A-star, I always just grab Aaron Granberg's A-star project, which is on the asset store, and there's a free version too, and supports lots of different A-star stuff, right? And it's kind of it's there, it works. Maybe there's some situation you want to write your own, but
that's it's one of those things where it's you generally, in these cases, with behavior trees and things like that, you just generally use an asset, because to rewrite it yourself, I don't know. I go both ways. I go through different periods of my development life where I think you know what? I think it's best to just write your own solution, because you're probably not going to need a lot. And I know that a lot of times these assets, they're really robust, and sometimes it could be a little heavy. But then I flip to the other end of the spectrum where I'm if you treat it like a business, I'm just trying to get things going. Then in those times I'm let me just get the asset, put it in, call it a cost, and then move on with my life.
That's, I think about it exactly the same way. And I think that's a big risk, is that you pull a lot of these, asset store packages. They get they're trying to cover 1 million different games, right? And somebody will be well, what about if I want to do this and I want to do it that way and I need a UI for this? And then so you pull it in and you get this thing that can do 45 different things, when in fact you really just needed to do one or two, and you're pulling in a lot of crud maybe it's good code, but it's just like, I don't need any, 80% of
Zenject
this.
is a great example of this, and
Yeah.
it's truly like I think I can really say that if it ever comes to like dependency injection, I will handle it myself. Like it had to be like a really data driven, complicated game for me to actually use extendject or zenject, whatever it's called these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those, it's one of those things that you just have to weigh the pros and cons of. And from a business perspective, it's a pro. Let me just grab the asset. From a developer perspective, you might think, well, I don't want to add a bunch of bloat to my project, so I want to be pure and make my own thing. But it just depends.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing, is like, also, how central is it?
Hmm.
How much stuff is it going to do, right? If you're just like, I could just throw this thing in, I
Yeah.
just need an agent to walk over here and do this, and it's really simple, and you're like, fine, it does it, keep moving, right? But if it's something that a lot of parts of your game are going to hook into, or it's one of those like, how long is a piece of string kind of conversations.
Yeah. And
I
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say what Jason Story is saying there, like that's why architecture is important, because if you focus on how you structure your entire code base, you can sort of slot things in and out. So you might say like, well, let me just make my own quick A-star pathfinding thing right now. I'm going to slot it in here. And if your architecture is robust, if you ever need additional features and you're like, listen, my own solution is not cutting it anymore, then at that point, it should be, the idea is that you should be able to just take it out and slot in the asset and make it work. Whether that be through, inheriting some base class that does the A-star stuff or some other way, that's an approach. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to talk about on my channel, honestly. Just how do you approach developing a project? What are some of the problems you come up against, and how can you reason through solving those problems in a way that's the three words that I always say, and I'm trying to think of a more marketing way to say this, but like it's scalability, maintainability, and testability. Those are the three things that I really like to focus on. And I think if you can achieve that, then your software is going to probably be in a good place to slot in and out, an asset if you need to.
Yeah, and I think on that, there's an interesting conversation going on in the comments. Josh from TA says, I think every programmer should try to write a game engine. Ultimately, they'll realize that the amount of work to catch up with a big engine is out of scope of your lifespan, which is kind of brutal, but I think very true, right? Especially with, and this is, obviously there's lots of little tiny games where you could write a tiny engine and that's perfect. And that's probably the case where it's probably recommended. But yeah, if you want to make like a Frostbite competitor, like you're talking about at this point, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of man hours, or Unity. I mean, Unity has, I think 2,000 developers now working on code, like about half of the company. I think they're up to like 4,000 people, and about half is like devs that are actually adding stuff to the code base, right? So it's like, you have 2,000 years to work on this. Like, let me know if you do, and I'll get some of what you're smoking. But
I'm a great proponent of anyone can do anything they want as long as you can live forever and you have all the resources.
Exactly. Yeah, as long as you got a time freezing machine, you can do whatever you want. And I think that, and then some people saying, oh, I don't think it's valuable to make a game engine or whatever. I think that there's a value, especially if you're a programmer, and depending on what area you're in, right? But if you're kind of like a systems level programmer, you're doing graphics programming and stuff, I think it is good to know what goes into rendering a triangle on the screen and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's going to help you to understand how some of these bigger engines work. And honestly, the way Unity is now, they've got like scriptable render passes, and you can get these engines are starting to give you access to lower levels of abstraction, right? Where being able to understand how that stuff works more, it probably is valuable, right? So I think it's useful as a learning exercise. It's just not a commercial exercise, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like if that's what you're into as a hobby or whatever, and I think it's cool. I think we've all as developers gone through periods of like, I just want to know how it's made, what's going on under the covers, and there's a lot of value in learning all that.
Yeah, and I think I'm just back reading, but Cree Arthur asked, what are the pros and cons of Zenject? I'll let Charles speak to that, but says that they're using their custom scriptable object engine based on Ryan Hippel's 2017 talk for shared data. And the biggest problem with it is debugging the scriptable object events. I recommend there's an asset store package. Well, this may be too far for you now, but you could at least look at it. There's an asset store package called Scriptable Object Architecture, the very, very descriptively titled package. And he's added he's taken that Ryan Hippel scriptable object approach, but built it out with debugging, like a bunch of custom inspectors and a lot of debug options where you can like raise events and build little stack traces for your events and stuff, all in the inspector. It's really valuable if you're taking that scriptable object approach, at least to look at it, right? Maybe you've rolled your own thing, but look, it's free. I'm pretty sure it's free. I actually did a video about it on the 1008 channel a while ago, just kind of like high level review, but I recommend at least looking at it if you're going that way. That's one of those things, right? A lot of people, including myself, kind of got religion about scriptable objects and got excited about it. And then I started rolling my own based on Ryan Hippel's very stubby kind of code that he put on GitHub. And then I very quickly found there's that one, scriptable object architecture. There's another one called Atom, I think, which I haven't actually used, but a lot of people said, we're like, oh, no, this is much better than what you're using. I was like, oh, thanks for telling me. But yeah, take a look at what's out there before you roll your own, because there's a lot of good stuff. Some good conversation going here. I'm just trying to catch up. Do you want to speak to Zenject, Charles?
Yeah, I mean, I can cover it briefly. The pros and cons. The pros of Zenject, and there's a lot of backstory to that framework, by the way. Some meta story going on there. I think Extendject is what the creator of it is officially maintaining. Besides the point. The pros of it are it's a very robust dependency injection framework. If you have a need for some feature regards to dependency injection, it'll probably have it, and it'll probably do it very well. The cons is it's very bloated. Generally speaking, you'll probably use you'll use a very small percentage of the actual features. What that means to the project, the size of the build, how it runs, it's just going to depend on the project you're working on. So you're going to have to evaluate that. But in my opinion, generally speaking, I've noticed that it's pretty much, it comes with more bloat than I'm ever willing to accept in my own projects. So that's kind of where it's at. It's great. It's very well written. The creator, Steve Vermillion, really smart, nice guy. I've done a stream with him as well in the past. So yeah, I recommend checking out. I mean, if you're interested in dependency injection, just want to know what that is, playing around with that asset would be a good place to start because it does everything you'd want.
Yeah. No, and I think it has a good reputation, but I think it's also just right. Like, what do you like, right? Do you like that kind of approach? Somebody was asking about compute shaders. It was Andreas Arcaro. Matt Gamble has a great video on compute shaders over on the Game Dev Guide YouTube channel, a kind of I don't know if it's a getting started video, but it doesn't assume a lot of prior knowledge. I recommend you start there. That's a topic I'm personally pretty interested in. It's one of those things that like many shader things, it's one of those things I've kind of shied away from because it sounds complicated, but actually after watching Matt's video on Game Dev Guide, I felt more confident to attempt. And that is one of those things we were talking about dots before. Being able to push calculations onto the GPU is a really powerful tool. So it's a good topic.
Yeah, that's a really cool topic. I haven't really explored it too much, but I'll definitely check out that video.
Yeah, I think it's a good place to start for sure. All right, Nicholas is asking, what experience does Matt have on the business side of Unity development? Good
Matt
question.
Matt has a lot of experience in the business side. I mean, honestly.
Well,
I think
yeah,
so.
it's a funny set of experience. It's not experience shipping commercial games. It's more, so I worked at Unity. Well, first, in terms of like broad business experience, I've been doing lots of small and various sized creative business work for 25 years now, since I was a kid, making money as a freelancer, running record labels, and kind of just working and making a living in the creative industries, right? I worked in video production for many, many years, and in the film business and stuff, and did a lot of different things in that regard. So learned a lot of kind of business fundamental stuff through that. And then when I was working at Unity, I spent actually most of that time basically learning game development, right? And learning Unity and getting better and better at game development programming. I learned programming during those years. But what I also, towards the second half of my time there, I got promoted into management and ended up managing a team of people and doing a lot of buying of game development services from various contractors and vendors and partners, whether that was 3D art assets or development services or video production services. And that was definitely an interesting and educational process. So I kind of learned a bunch about that stuff from the buy side. And that actually was a lot of what inspired me to go out and be a part of Thousand Ant, because I kind of realized, okay, this is what the buyer needs, and this is what kind of gives a good experience from the buyer. I think we can replicate that over here. And learning how to work with big companies, like Unity or Microsoft, right? It's very different from working with smaller companies. There's a whole different, just kind of legal and commercial process that takes place that you just don't know until you've done it. And so yeah, that's a lot of that. And then now for the past 2 years, I've been kind of one of the main business people at Thousand Ant, negotiating both buying creative services from freelancers. Like, for example, when we hired Charles to work on the debugging video series that we did for Microsoft, right? Charles was a contractor at that point. And so we're working with him to figure out a good deal, to get him on the project. And then obviously working with Microsoft to make sure that they're getting what they need, and that in the middle of all that we can deliver a great experience for both parties and make money, right? So it's a pretty specialized set of skills. And then, I mean, this is like my whole resume, but don't ask me about this because you're gonna get a lot.
Can of worms.
Yeah, you open the can of worms. I mean, the other thing that I spent a lot of time doing for Unity was marketing, right? I was part of the online, ended up leading the online evangelism team. And so it was all about, marketing through teaching, right? Getting people to understand the product so they could use it and learn it and use it more. And so, I learned a lot about marketing through that, and then and YouTube and all this other stuff. And so that's kind of the business and marketing side is actually in the past. That's kind of why the Thousand Ant channel is pivoting a little bit more in that direction. It's funny. I noticed I was like doing the intro for the channel. I was like, welcome to Thousand Ant, where we give you Unity tutorials, devlogs, and advice. And I was like, damn, I haven't done a Unity tutorial in like 9 months. I was like, I need to take this out of the intro. Like I'm giving false advertising. But the truth is that, a lot of what I do day to day is actually about, budgets, contracts, schedules, negotiation, that kind of stuff. And that's part of the process too, right? And that's something that I'm like literally thinking about all day, every day, as Charles knows, and gets a front row seat on a lot of. So yeah, so I want to talk about that more and share some of that stuff with folks as well over on Thousand Ant. Long answer. We should probably wrap up.
Well, I really appreciate the questions here. Someone, I guess the final question we can try to answer here is someone asked are we going to be doing these live streams? And I think at this point, we've decided not to do regularly scheduled live streams. We really want to focus on just getting the content right, getting a good rhythm going, get our momentum built. And we have talked internally about, maybe in 2022, we'll start the year, think about how can we slot in a live stream on a regular basis. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to ever live stream again for the rest of this year. There are probably going to be a couple key moments where we hop on and do this sort of thing where we maybe have an announcement or some project to announce and share with you. And then we'll do this thing where we like chat with you guys and have a little Q&A.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I actually love doing these.
I love it too. It's so great. I
It's
learned
it's just
so
fun.
much from these. It's
Yeah,
so
and it's
good.
exactly. No, it's really fun. And I think we will. It's not that we're going to stop doing them, but we that was part of what we were talking about. It was like, should we announce that we're going to be doing a regular live stream? But I think if you're going to do a regular live stream, you kind of sorry, you might hear my kids yelling in the background. If you want to do a regular live stream, you have to do it weekly, in my opinion, to have it be like good. And that's probably too big of a commitment for us right now. So we'll pop up and do some of these in a more impromptu way because they are fun. But I don't think we're gonna like make a commitment to having that be like a core of what we're doing for now, because it takes time and energy.
Yeah. But if you'd like to chat with us and see us more regularly, we do have a Discord server. Both of us have. There's a 1000 Ant Discord server. There's an Infallible Code Discord server. Hop on those. There's a lot of activity happening on both channels. I'm probably not as active as I could be, but I try to every 2 weeks I'll hop on for like 30 minutes and just be like, hey, what's going on? And then I'll kind of back out. But I think I'm gonna try to be on there more often now that we're like officially relaunched. So.
And actually, I would say thank you for shouting out the 1000 Ant Discord. But the 1000 Ant Discord, honestly, it's been a little bit neglected in that same way that you described, Charles. And what I would say is, for now, let's talk on the Infallible Code Discord. I might even shut down the 1000 Ant Discord because it's one of those things where I was like, this is great, it's going to be so fun. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have time to do this. Like, I don't even have time to do any of the things I'm supposed to do. I don't have time to like sit and chat on Discord. So I probably will. I don't know if I'll shut it down, but I'm not promoting it right now because it's not that active. So I think let's focus on the Infallible Code Discord, and I'll come over there and chat with y'all. And I think that's a better way to do it, because we don't need to split across multiple servers.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and thanks so much to Game Dev Guide for cheering us on. Really appreciate it, and just really appreciate all the advice and everything. And everybody go subscribe to his channel because it's great. Yeah, cool. All right. I mean, I see a couple. Jason Story heroically answering a bunch of these granular programming questions in the chat. So huge shout out to Jason,
who
Thank
also
you so
actually just launched his channel recently. So definitely go subscribe
Did
to
he?
him. Yeah, he did.
Oh,
yeah.
shoot. Whoa.
That's what I was saying.
Major. Bro, I've been trying to get Jason to make his channel for so long.
Yeah, man, you got to subscribe.
When are you going to do it? Come on. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just do it.
Take it from me. His first 3 videos are bangers. You definitely got to check them out. Really good stuff.
I'm ready.
And look at those expressions in the thumbnails, man. Like, he's got it down. Unity arrays, don't do this.
Subscribe right now. I'm about to go subscribe right now. Oh,
it's fire.
That's big news. That's big news. All right. Well, we'll make sure to work in a plug for that in the collab video that we have coming up. We definitely need to shout that out. And see, I didn't even know. All right. That's great. That's big news. Big. That's the second announcement.
That's the second announcement. We didn't tell you guys.
Story's channel is out. Get over there, guys. Major. Yeah, that is awesome. Cool. All right. Well, let's go out on a high note. Thank you so much to everybody for joining. 78 people who stayed all the way till now. Super, super nice.
One final plug for the newsletter, Level 2 Game Dev. I just dropped a link in the chat. Go sign up for that. We're going to be we're already working on the first newsletter, so keep an eye out for that. It's going to be monthly. Just again, want to point that out. We won't be spamming you with a bunch of boring content. It's going to be good stuff.
It's just an email from me and Charles, right? So nothing crazy, nothing corporate, just just us sharing the stuff that we've just recently made, and B, other cool stuff like Jason's new channel.
Oh yeah,
definitely going to be in there. Super excited about that. So definitely drop your email in there, and you'll be hearing from us. Thank you so much for everybody coming out. Super, super cool. I just dropped a video over on the TA channel as well, which gives now you've heard me talk about it for a long ass time, so you probably don't need to watch it.
Give it a view and a like.
Give it a view. Drop a like for the algorithm.
We all know the algorithm is king here.
Drop a like for the algorithm. I actually didn't put a thumbnail on it yet because I forgot about it and just launched it. But yeah, check that out if you're interested to hear me talk more about what we're thinking here and what it's all going to be. Shout out to the one person who gave the video a dislike. We love you too. And
always one.
yeah, there's always one. It's the internet. The power of the internet.
All right, y'all. Thank you again for joining, and hopefully we'll chat soon.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Take it easy.